Good afternoon, everybody. I think we can start. It's 10 past 12, and I think we can start with our panel. The Conference of the Europe, of the Future of Europe, is a Europe-wide democratic exercise bringing the citizens to the heart of the debate on the issues that matter to them in order to help the European Union respond better to their needs and interests in the years to come. Today, we are continuing with conversation with citizens. We already organized a couple of conversations in Croatia, and today I'm particularly pleased that we are here in the Assembly Hall of the Chancellor's Office of Zagreb, surrounded with portraits of all the chancellors up to now. And I'm also delighted that the host of this today conversation is the Faculty of Law of Zagreb. Once upon a time, I was also a student of this faculty, so Andrea also, so actually we came back here. Exactly. Today we have a panel which is titled Setting the Stage for Tomorrow, Global and Regional Role of the European Union. We have excellent panelists today, and I'm very pleased that today with us is Ms. Dubravke Šuice, Vice President of the European Commission in charge for democracy and demography, and also co-chair of the Executive Board of the Conference on the Future of Europe. Today with us is also State Secretary Ms. Andreje Metelko-Zgombić from the Ministry of Foreign and European Affairs of Croatia. And I'm particularly pleased to welcome our third panelist, Mr. Gašpera Dovžana, who is the State Secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Slovenia. They will discuss all the issues relating to the title of today's conversations with the citizens. But before that, I would just like to mention that our participants today are the students of the Faculty of Law of the University of Zagreb, which are presented here in this hall. Also, some students of the Diplomatic Academy of the Ministry of Foreign and European Affairs. We will have followers on Zoom platform and YouTube from universities of Zagreb, University of Ljubljana, and University of Nova Gorica. And also we will have followers from Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Slovenia, Ministry of Foreign and European Affairs of Zagreb, and representatives from non-governmental organizations in Croatia. Today I'm going to be moderator of this panel. My name is Goldner Lang. I'm ambassador and advisor to the Minister of Foreign and European Affairs of the Republic of Croatia. Before we start with the panel and with our discussion, I would like to introduce on behalf of the host of this conference, Vice Dean Professor Iris Goldner Lang, who will present to us her welcoming address. Professor Goldner, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. I hope you don't mind that I took off the mask, but otherwise I don't think you would be able to hear me. So, dear Vice President of the European Commission Šuice, dear State Secretary Metelko-Zgombić, dear State Secretary Dovžana, dear Ambassador Markotić, dear Head of the Representation of the European Commission Zlatev, dear colleagues, and most of all, dear students. It's really a pleasure and an honor to be able to welcome you here at this beautiful hall of the University of Zagreb, at the Faculty of Law, University of Zagreb. As Ambassador Markotić said, we have a full agenda today for this panel. We have amazing panelists who are top-notch policymakers who will be discussing the global and the regional role of the European Union today. And all this is organized within the framework of the Conference on the Future of Europe. So why is it appropriate that the Faculty of Law is the host for this event? The Faculty of Law of the University of Zagreb has been extremely active on all possible planes in the past 2 decades or even more when it comes to the relations with the European Union. A lot of our professors, including myself, have taken part in the accession negotiations. So before Croatia joined the European Union, and we started and developed and established the first courses on European Union law in Croatia. And I would say that we are still at the forefront in this respect, not only in terms of our teaching, and we have some of our best students here, because the students that came are, some of them are student assistants who have been chosen by different departments as the best students, the most motivated and interested ones for different subject areas. Also the representatives of our different student associations, most prominent, I would say, ELSA, and also other students who have shown interest and motivation for this topic. I come, and I'm, by vocation, not only a teacher, but really a person who feels passionate about the European Union. I'm heading the European Public Law Department at the Faculty of Law in Zagreb, and I really think that it's really important to discuss the future of Europe. So I invite all of you to use this opportunity to have these amazing people with you today. And once you listen to their presentations, to really grasp this opportunity and be involved in the discussion, to ask any questions you might have, make any comments that you might have, no matter whether they are positive or critical. And I invite also all of you who are present here virtually, because I know that some people wanted to join and could not make it because we are limited in space due to the pandemic, to also be involved in the discussion. So thank you once again for coming, and enjoy. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Goldner Lang, for your welcoming remarks, and also again for your hospitality. Now we will proceed to the panel. First, our panelists will introduce their opening remarks, 5 to 10 minutes. Afterwards, we will have a session of questions and answers. We are planning to complete our work until around 1:45, and Madame Šuice has to leave around 1 o'clock, so we will start without further ado, and I give the floor to Vice President of the European Commission, to Madame Dubravke Šuice. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Moderator, dear Professor Lang, dear Secretary Metelko-Zgombić, dear Secretary Dovžan, dear ladies and gentlemen, dear students, dear participants, both online and offline. First of all, I would like to thank you for this invitation to join this discussion as a part of the Conference on the Future of Europe. My thanks go to Andrea for making this event happen. I'm particularly grateful to our friend Gašpar and the Slovenian presidency for his work as my co-chair, as well as tremendous support, your tremendous support in bringing this conference to every corner of the European Union. Thank you once again, Gašpar. And now to the conference. The conference and the core idea of the conference is that deliberations about the future of the European Union should take place at all levels, across borders and across languages, across cultures and across histories. This event today achieves both. I thank you for registering this event, Andrea, and registering the outcome of today's discussion on digital platform of the Conference on the Future of Europe, since this digital platform is the hub of the whole conference. The conference is part of our efforts under a new push for European democracy, and this exercise in deliberative democracy allows us to discuss the increasing number of transnational issues we face together in the European Union. The European dream has already delivered peace and prosperity. It has delivered us openness, equality of rights, and system based on values. But we cannot assume that this dream is achieved forever. Our union and its values are being disputed and challenged, as all of you know, both internally and externally. Wherever the rights of an individual or a community are denied or undermined, our European dream is being damaged. Therefore, it is important that we regularly assess where we are and where we want to go. The conference is a key part of this process. As you know, democracy constantly evolves. We politicians and decision makers must embrace this change and have the courage to evolve with it. From day one, as Vice President of the European Commission in charge of democracy and demography, I have invested all my energy in citizens' empowerment and engagement. My time as mayor of Dubrovnik taught me a valuable lesson. All politics is local in the end. We must nurture the grassroots. European Union policy making is not simply top-down. I believe that every generation can actively contribute to our democracy. We should ensure solidarity between generations, and in democracy and demography, you find the word demos in its roots, meaning people. Democracy and demography interact, and they are cross-cutting. There is much we can learn from these interlinkages. This can help make our democratic institutions capable of responding to the needs of citizens, wherever they choose to live and work. Citizens are at the heart of the conference process. Their input into multilingual digital platform, the European Citizens Panels, and the plenary is the basis of our work. The Commission's priority is to ensure that citizens are listened to and feel included as full partners in deliberations. The 4 European Citizens Panels have deliberated on ideas coming from digital platform. These panels bring together 800 citizens randomly selected. They are a diverse group from 16 to 25 years old from all 27 member states. And young people have a special place in this conference, in this process. 1/3 of the members of the European Citizens Panels are aged 16 to 25. Why we are talking about 16 to 25? Because we are talking about future, about next generation EU. So how can we talk about you without you? And this is the reason why we included 1/3 of young citizens into our deliberations. So, at this moment, I must say, I'm really impressed with their work and with their commitment. Not only young people, but all of them. The oldest person at the moment in our plenary is 86-year-old German, and the youngest is 16-year-old Czech boy. So all are somehow there. 2 of the European Citizens Panels have submitted their 90 recommendations for consideration to the conference plenary over the weekend of the 21st of January. One of the clear messages sent by citizens was that they want citizens' assemblies to be integrated into European Union policy making. Well-reasoned ideas such as these can help improve our policy making. Just last weekend in Maastricht, I was in Maastricht at the 3rd European Citizens Panel on European Union in the World and Migration. 40 recommendations were made. Citizens addressed the autonomy of the European Union, the better promotion of strategic products, and looked at how to remedy the causes of migration and a common approach to asylum. The fourth and final European Citizens Panel will deliberate on a stronger economy, social justice and job, and it will take place in Dublin next week. Regarding the topic today, the Commission has always been open to the participation of countries from the Western Balkans in the conference. They have their place in our reflection on the future of Europe. President von der Leyen confirmed this during her visit to the region last year, and indeed, Western Balkans are a strategic priority for the European Union. We share a common future. The Commission is working hard to encourage the countries to advance on fundamental reforms and bring the region closer to European standards and acquis. As the deliberative democracy wave washes across the European Union and indeed the world, the European Union has a unique opportunity to lead and inspire others across the globe. And this conference serves as an inspiring and innovative model of deliberative democracy. It is recognized and applauded international fora, for example, Bali Democracy Forum, the Chilean Constitutional Process, Atlantic Council. It is vital that we reach out to partners, especially those who share our values. This is another reason to give fresh impetus to the aspiration of the Western Balkans, and we have asked a lot from those countries, and they have delivered on reforms. Now it is for the European Union to deliver. This really is a question of our credibility. The European Union is the biggest donor, trading partner, and investor in this region. We need to build on that to bridge the socio-economic gap between the European Union and the Western Balkans. We have developed economic and investment plan, as you know, to spur the long-term and sustainable economic recovery in the region. This is a substantial investment package mobilizing up to nearly 30 billion euros of funding as a combination of grants, guarantees, and preferential loans. I want to thank the Slovenian presidency for organizing European Union Western Balkans Summit in October last year that included a consultation with the leaders of the Western Balkan countries. The Brdo Declaration reaffirmed clear support for the Western Balkans. We will continue to invest in our common future and address transnational issues. When it comes to strategic autonomy, it is vital that we have all the necessary information to hand, including demographic information on the latest trends and patterns about the wider world and ourselves. About the global implications of demographic trends. The share of Union's population in the world is shrinking, all of you know. We are aging. We are also living longer and healthier lives. So addressing demographic change is key to building a fairer and more resilient society. Across all generations, addressing demographic change is key to taking on our rights and our responsibilities in the world. More than ever, we need an open trade policy that enables the European Union to remain competitive, build alliances, and shape global solutions. But we also need to be more assertive and innovative in defending our interests and our values. On openness, the reform of the World Trade Organization is our first priority. On assertiveness, the implementation and enforcement of trade agreements is also a priority. But we must widen our lens to include demographic change. The Commission laid the foundations for its work in the 2020 report on the impact of demographic change. Then we opened a wide debate in Green Paper on Aging to look at the challenges and opportunities aging presents. Everyone is impacted directly by the prospect of living a longer life, including the young. The 2021 long-term vision for rural areas looks into the changing realities for rural areas and their communities. We have launched a Rural Pact as framework for continuous engagement and cooperation of a wide range of actors. Later this year, the Commission will come forward with a European care strategy addressing both carers and care receivers, from childcare to long-term care. and vital initiative on brain drain and mitigating the challenges associated with population decline, which is also present here in Croatia, will look into different drivers, the long-term consequences and potential solutions to stop or even reverse brain drain and turn it into brain gain, or the recent, we call it the moment brain circulation. So there is no doubt that demographic resilience has increased in importance as the transnational issues become more prominent. Think only about global common experience of COVID-19. The unprecedented package of the European Union long-term budget and the next generation EU recovery amounts to over 2 trillion euros. The Recovery and Resilience Facility is the heart of the next generation EU with more than 720 billion euros in loans and grants to member states. So next generation EU is also about building a better future. More than half will be invested in climate and digital, as you know. The system is already working, allocations are already arriving in member states, and same is with Croatia. And to conclude, dear secretaries of the state, dear participants, the significant geopolitical shifts we face today, emphasized by the experience of COVID-19 pandemic, are still far from over. The building of democratic institutions, democratic connection, legitimacy and trust helps reinforce our democracy, at home and abroad, for current and future generations. The Conference on the Future of Europe is not a panacea for all ills, but is a vital step in making our democracy fit for the future, ensuring that no one is abandoned, that no one is left behind. As this phase of the conference is coming to a close, it will be very important and necessary upon the European democratic institutions to respond to the citizens as outlined in the joint declaration which was signed by 3 presidents of 3 important institutions. The European Union was able to build the basis for the next generation of Europeans to have the same pace and prosperity that those of my generation of Europeans aspired and finally achieved. We can never take any of it for granted, and we must work together to preserve it. We must get this right if we want to leave a democracy for future generations that is worthy of the name. So democracy, once again, cannot be taken for granted, should be cherished, and we are trying to make it fit for the future together with all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you to the Vice President for these opening remarks. Now we will have as a speaker State Secretary of the Ministry of Foreign and European Affairs, Ms. Andreje Metelko-Zgombić. Andreja, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Dear guests, dear participants, dear Madam Šuice, Vice President of the Commission, dear State Secretary Dovžan, dear Vice Dean, Professor Goldner Lang. Dopustite mi prvo da vas sve lijepo pozdravim i zahvalim svima onima koji su danas ovdje prisutni s nama i koji su nam se pridružili, ali prije svega da se zahvalim našem domaćinu, Sveučilištu u Zagrebu, koje nam je omogućilo održavanje ove konferencije, ovog događanja u ovoj prekrasnoj zgradi Sveučilišta u Zagrebu iz 17. stoljeća. Ove godine obilježavamo 350. obljetnicu Sveučilišta u Zagrebu, koje je jedno od najstarijih sveučilišta u ovom dijelu Europe. But now I will turn to English, as this is our official language. But before I really turn to the topic, let me also just outline that this historical building suffered a major earthquake damage, and now is going to be renewed, amongst others, through the funds to be collected from the European Solidarity Fund. And this is, I would say, a tangible expression of European solidarity, and we all know that European Solidarity Fund has also been given the possibility of financing some other public emergencies, talking about COVID as well, and in the years, last 2 years. So our discussion Here is a real example of the tangible difference that EU makes to the daily life of its citizens, of the member states and their citizens. Coming back to the conference, as you heard, it is really a unique project bringing EU closer to its citizens, and in particular we are glad that today we are addressing the young generations and to hear your thoughts, your ideas, because today we are discussing the future, determining the future in which we are going to live in the coming decades. I'm really grateful for Madam Dubravke Šuice to be here present with us and for over and over showing the significance of this conference and showing why it is extremely matter that the voice of our citizens is heard. One of the big topics of the conference is the role of the Europe in the world. And as you may know, today's event is just one of the events which has been organized in Croatia with the very same topic. We organized events in Dubrovnik, in Zadar, in Pula, and some others are also to come. This was also, as Madam Šuice noted, a subject of the one of the 4 European panels. And here we have these 40 recommendations which have come out as a result of those deliberations. Our discussion today is also extremely valuable because the outcome of today's discussion will also be fed into the platform of the European Commission and will also take into board when considering the outcome of the conference. Why this topic is extremely important? We all know, we all feel that we live in an extremely interconnected world. It has been underscored by COVID, which has shaken our societies, our lives, our economy. We are at the moment on the cusp of a profound digital and green transition, and we really want to build a Europe which is fit for the future. We also are facing serious security challenges, including also in our immediate neighborhood, and it is extremely important that EU has its credibility as a global actor. And one of the proofs of its credibility is definitely the ability of EU to be an actor also in its neighborhood. In our previous discussion here in Croatia, one could not have escaped always the issue of immediate neighborhood of the EU, in particular here the Western Balkans. We all know that 6 Western Balkan countries are on their own EU path in different stages, and it is extremely important that we take them on board, that we assist them in their EU path. This is also why during the Croatian presidency we organized the Zagreb summit dedicated to Western Balkans countries, and Slovenian colleagues also organized the Brdo summit, which also managed to gather leaders of the EU and the Western Balkan countries. The EU role is in encouraging reforms in its neighborhood is of the immense importance. It cannot be overemphasized. Let me particularly at this very point draw your attention also to the Bosnia and Herzegovina, where ensuring equality of 3 constituent peoples and eliminating all forms of discrimination is the only and the right way for this country to go forward, in particular facing the incoming elections. So, and counterbalancing unitarist and separatistic trends in this country will assist those countries to move forward. It is also of the great importance for the stability, security of the region, but also of the EU and European continent. Positive impacts of reform will then enable stability, functionality of the country, which we all wish. So the enlargement policy has been among the most successful policies of the EU. Why? Because of its transformative process. It ideally leads to consolidation of democratic, institutional, judicial, and economic reforms, and it is the best tool in our toolbox, on our disposal, to reach to the region and to ensure it's stable, secure, and prosperous. That said, we should also, in order to see the full picture, we should also somehow zoom out of our neighborhood and examine the overall global role of the EU and the global context, and to examine whether EU has the ability to act both at home and abroad in order to counter global trends. The pandemic has put in a spotlight the thin line between the interdependence and dependency in a globalized world. It has forced us to examine the role of the nation state and the value of partnerships and strong multilateralism. It has also underscored the need for solidarity in global relations and more resilience to face future shocks. And it has also brought increased attention to the global supply chains as a factor of reshaping the geopolitical and geoeconomic landscape. And it has made also, at this point, we can also look what kind of EU we want, whether we can find a common ground with other players, including the US, Russia, China, and to build a more collaborative post-pandemic international order, as opposed to a new cycle of a great power competition. The pandemic has also made its mark, as I said, in all spheres of our lives, but there are some other challenges which are here, and they are really not less serious. Talking about climate change and environmental degradation, we should talk about deteriorating international security, instability and conflicts in our neighborhood and beyond, competition for key resources, challenges related to digital technologies, migration, demographic challenges, demographic decline, just to name a few of them. So what is common to all those challenges? As we all know, no state can face it alone. We should work together. And all those challenges somehow test the strategic autonomy of the EU. And this is why we should think about the EU as the global player, global actor which has capacity and freedom to act and to promote and to protect our interests, our values, to the benefit of our member states and to the benefit of our citizens. So it opens a very broad range of questions for discussion, from ensuring the resilience of our health and food system to securing affordable and decarbonized energy. 60% of total energy in Europe comes outside the Europe. We should also think about digital and technological sovereignty. We should also discuss supply of critical raw materials that are key for our 21st century development, batteries. And we also need to ensure the resilience of our economic and financial systems. We should combat the effects of the brain drain. We should strengthen security and defense capacities. So we should also work together with our global partners in promoting peace and security. So all those topics are on our agenda. Let's jointly discuss and see how we can move forward in those areas. And finally, when speaking about the EU resilience, let me not forget that the force underpinning all EU policies and plans is its people. And demographic trends we face, and depopulation or population decline cause is definitely a cause of our great concern. We should do utmost to avoid brain drain, and taking into account how we can take everybody on board, and how we should step forward in the future. We should improve our skills and talents, and most of all, we should enable people living in their homes, communities, regions, to continue living there and to have the access to the knowledge, to the working place, and all what is extremely important for us. So, dear guests and participants, before we turn to you to hear your suggestions, your comments, I would really like to thank once again and express my my real pleasure to have also my colleague Gašper here. And last but not least, we also have Slovenian students and participants also online, and I really very, very warmly welcome them as well. So, thank you.
Thank you, Andrea, for your opening remarks. Now we will move to our distinguished guest from Slovenia, Mr. Gašpera Dovžana, who is the State Secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And we are looking forward to hearing from you your opening remarks, Mr. Dovžan.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Dear Dubravka, dear Andrea, thank you for being here, and to you especially for hosting this event. I would also like to say thank you for the participation, for all of you being here in room, but also online. I think it's really important that we seize the moment that we have and to debate our common future. The fact is that the European Union is anything but self-evident. It cannot be taken for granted. And I think we, and especially younger generations, they sometimes forget that the fact that we can have safe travel, that we can trade across border, that we can move capital from one country to another, that we can go and work and study abroad, that this is somehow our normal. But this is not true. The fact is that these are really achievements of the European Union, or I would say what we know under the name of European Union nowadays. But the whole process of European integration began after the World War II, with a very basic idea that that if we want to have lasting peace on the continent, we have to integrate economies, we have to integrate peoples in order to safeguard peace and well-being of people. And I think this very basic idea is still valid today. We should not forget that all this, let's say, what we now might take for granted is something that we should treat as great achievements. And in order to secure these great achievements, also to be there in future, we have to see how we have to change and adapt in order to safeguard them for the future. And this is the purpose of the Conference on the Future of Europe. The EU has gone through a number of crises. Many have already been mentioned today. Financial crisis has been particularly devastating. We have had migration crisis that is still ongoing, and what we should not forget, that those crises have really hurt the EU, have also contributed not necessarily to increasing mutual trust among member states. And we have also seen Brexit as a consequence, which is perceived as a sign of disintegration. So this is the context in which the leaders decided to give the conference a chance and to invite also young people and other stakeholders to participate in the debate with the aim to change for the future. And I think here is a great opportunity that should not be wasted. And in this respect, I'm particularly glad that you came here today so that we have a chance to exchange, and that you also have a chance to propose your ideas that should be integrated in our thinking when preparing the EU to be fit for the future. And just a couple of remarks before we start the debate. I think the EU has a number of internal challenges. Many of them have already been mentioned. When it comes to mutual trust among member states, when it comes to the need for transition of our economy towards more digital and green economies, but also when it comes to ensuring more symmetric development of the European Union. Both of the speakers before me mentioned the question of demography, and here I think we can all observe that we have some asymmetric developments and that we should invest our thinking how to reverse the trend that we have a circulation of brain and not only brain drain. And there are many opportunities here, I think, because especially in this region, I think that we enjoy high quality of life, and we can really, with strengthening mutual cooperation, giving the people the chance to work and to develop the entrepreneurial ideas. There's a really great potential in the region, especially taking into effect the enlargement perspective of the Western Balkans. And I think this is very, very important for the future of the continent, not only of the European Union, but of the continent as such. Many of unresolved and outstanding issues remain in the region, but since I already mentioned Brexit, you can just take, for example, the difficulties we are having now with, in this context, especially when it comes to Northern Ireland. And this is just a demonstration of, let's say, challenges if you undo the integration process. So basically, and this is also where the answer or the case for enlargement lies. It's only through integration that the unresolved political and outstanding issues can really be resolved in a peaceful and mutually beneficial matters. It is only the European Union, the only known framework where borders are not something that separates from one another, but relates and connects. So it's another notion of internal borders in the European Union. And I think this is very important to safeguard also for the future. I already mentioned these internal challenges, but speaking about also external challenges, and I think here it has been mentioned already today, but we have to be aware of the big shifts that we are able to follow in the global economic and political development. And I think the geopolitical picture is changing. And if you want the Europe to be a relevant actor then we have to invest in all intellectual power that we have towards strengthening the internal, of course, cohesion of the European Union, but also its standing on the global scene. Many things could be done in order to improve this standing, but the principal assumption is that as long as we are united, we at least have a chance to be a player. So this is very, very important notion, I think, that this unity when it comes to external action is extremely important. But not only this, I think also all those concepts that we are trying to develop and we were also trying to contribute to during our presidency, especially under the umbrella of resilience. We have seen in a number of crises how difficult it is when we are faced with crisis, how difficult it is to stay together and to focus on joint solution. But we have also seen that only through joint solutions we are successful. Only solutions that are that are found together and not against each other work. And this was also a good lesson of those crises. And I think we should really build on this newly acquired, I would say, experience and develop this concept of resilience in all directions. This does not mean that we want to be self-sufficient, because this is not possible in a nowadays world, but it means that we have to develop mechanisms and decision-making processes and capabilities to confront the challenges ahead of us, so that we are not only in a position to react, but also to be more proactive creator of the external environment. So I think this is where there's also an immense potential also to improve the mutual trust among member states. And during the presidency we had in the last semester, we invested quite a lot of energy, and of course also with the significant support of the European Commission, but also with partners, Croatia also, we managed to make a step forward so that there's, let's say, at least a common understanding now that we should really, even in times of crisis, ensure that the single market works, and that we should not repeat the mistakes we had when the pandemic started, for example, that basically the 4 freedoms were suspended overnight. So we have them in the treaties, but they were suspended overnight. So this is not what is supposed to be happening when we are faced with a crisis. Quite similar happened during the migration crisis. So these are experiences we have to learn from and transform them in an action that will lead towards establishing mechanisms and facilities to be more proactive and to work towards to the benefit of our economies and citizens on all basic principles of the European integration, also in times of crisis. So with this, I will not spare too much, just a couple of insights for the beginning, but I'm looking forward to engage with you in a discussion. It's really a pleasure to be here, so I'm all ears also to hear your ideas and suggestions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Dovžan, for your interesting opening remarks. Now we are moving to the discussion. You notice that I look frequently to my mobile because I receive via WhatsApp the name of the people who already asked some questions, who will ask, and the first on my list is Ms. Katarina Rende Dominis. This is Association Youth in the EU from Šibenik, as I understand. So, Ms. Rende Dominis, you have the floor.
Thank you very much for the floor. I wanted to connect my questions to the issues mentioned of stability and security, as well as the questions of fostering overall prosperity of the EU from an economic standpoint, which unquestionably, when looking at it from a long-term perspective, also means looking at the position of the EU from a demographic standpoint, as was already mentioned today. Demographical change means significant social, economic, and environmental impacts on local development, and it creates new challenges in many policy areas for the Western Balkan region, as well as from a transnational perspective. So, as a young person which has studied and lived abroad and has recently decided to return to Croatia, I can personally identify with the issue of consistent brain drain in the area. I mentioned, interestingly, the concept of funneling brain drain into brain gain and brain circulation, which stands to indicate that there is a possibility to tackle this issue not only on the local, but also on the EU level. Other challenges which are currently being faced on the EU level are those of low density in rural areas, of which our county, the Šibenik County, is a textbook example. Many young people choose to leave their small towns and search for better opportunities in larger urban centers or further west or north. But as can be seen, there's also a slowly rising trend of citizens coming back. Therefore, I have two questions which are directed perhaps more apparently to Ms. Šuice. I was wondering, what is your perspective on the developments that have taken place in the area of demography in the years that you've been appointed as Vice President for Democracy and Demography, and also of your experience of the Conference on the Future of Europe in this regard. So what is the picture of the future picture of demography in the EU? And secondly, I wanted to ask a more pragmatic question. So reflecting some of the citizens' views and recommendations on the conference plenary, we can observe that there's heightened interest to implement specialized bodies on the EU level to tackle some of the main issues concerning the future of Europe, and the issue of demographic change can be assessed as a core problem, but also shows great opportunity for growth. There are instruments which are already in place that have shown great promise, such as the Youth Guarantee, and the European Parliament has repeatedly connected demographical challenges with cohesion policy development. My question, therefore, is there a prospect of the establishment of a body on the EU level which will specialize on demographical issues and which will perhaps increase the discourse of bottom-up feedback from a regional perspective, and will more easily coordinate and simplify the allocation of funding from the Cohesion Fund in the areas where it is most necessary? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your questions and comments. Ms. Šuice will respond to your question.
Thank you for this question. Yes, we already heard this afternoon here that no policy can be drafted, be it on local, regional, national, or European level, without taking into account demographic change. Demographic change is evident all over Europe. If I tell you that if we go on like this in Europe without changing anything, in 2070 there will be, we Europeans will be only 4% of world population. This is something which we have to take into consideration. It doesn't mean that there will be less of us, but taking global dimension of demography into account, thinking about Africa, South America, you see that we will be really, at the same time, we want to be world leader in climate, world leader in semiconductors, in chips, in everything. So how can we do it with only 4%? So this is something we have to try to resolve. And what we are doing at this moment, there are three solutions. First solution is cohesion policy, you mentioned already. for us it is very important. The very word cohesion means that all the states are evenly developed, that the life in Bulgaria and Belgium is the same. This is what we want to achieve with proper use of cohesion funding. So we want to make areas, rural areas, our urban areas, whole Europe pleasant for living, which means then I can mention again brain drain. I won't say we want to reverse trends, because there is a freedom of movement and we don't have anything against it. My generation was longing to be free to move, in the past during a previous system. So freedom of movement is one of big achievements, but at the same time we have to make living in each and every corner of European Union pleasant and a living standard for young families to raise, of course, their families, their kids. Once again, raising kids, having kids is personal choice. I don't want to intervene into competence of the member states, but at the same time, without this help from European Union level, we won't be able to achieve what we want to achieve. So first is cohesion policy and living standards. Second one is proper use of artificial intelligence and robotics. We have to take this into consideration. We have to think about research, about innovations, and so on. And the third, which is only part of a solution, I don't want to be misunderstood, is proper managing of legal migrations. We have to think about this. It's sensitive, politically very sensitive question, very sensitive issue, but we have to think about this too. Because without taking this into consideration, we wouldn't be able to solve this equation, if I may say so. I have to tell here, and I know that you know this fact, that in the last 50 years, in 5 decades, we Europeans live 10 years more. So how are we going to match our health systems, social protection systems? How are they going to match to this achievement? I have to say this is achievement. At the same time, it is challenge. We have this pension age limit, which is in Croatia 65, in France 63, in Austria 67. So we have to think that if we live longer, we have to work a little longer. I know that this won't be popular to hear, but I want to be completely open to you, because without taking all this into consideration, we wouldn't be able to solve this demographic problem. So we cannot draft any demography policy, any economic policy nowadays without taking demographic change into account. And this is very important. I know that demography is member states' competence, but I'm not talking about demography in the very word, in the demography, what the definition of demography says. We are not counting birth rates, mortality rates. We are trying to make a social and economic environment for families all over Europe to have to raise their kids, to have better life. This is our demography. And talking about body, this would be an interesting idea to have a body at European level, but at this moment I'm trying, and what I'm doing, I'm gathering everything from different services, and I'm working hard together with all colleague commissioners. So this commission is really collegiate commission. Our portfolios overlap, and we are trying to work together. I work with Madame Ferreira, with Madame Gabriel, with Mr. Nicolas Schmidt, with all of them, so I cannot be together when we talk about demography. Demography is intersectorial, and it's all over Commission's work. So thank you for this question, and this would be, this is a very good idea from your side. Thank you.
Thank you for your response. Now I will give the floor on the same topic to Mr. Mr. Dovžan, who would also like to comment it.
Yeah, thank you very much. Maybe just a short addition, because I personally am also very concerned about the question of brain drain. I think it's a particular problem of the region, and but I also see that there's some that there are unexhausted opportunities. And I think what we'll neglect sometimes is that we have 4 freedoms in the European Union. And one of the freedoms that is less, I would say, developed is the freedom of services. And the freedom of services is where we still are, let's say, quite nationalistic in the European Union. And I think here lies great potential also for the Commission, but also, of course, great challenge for the member states to see how also this area could be liberalized. I can give you an example. We are all suffering from doctors living to, I don't know, Austria, Germany. But at the same time, the insurance companies would never send patients to be treated in Croatia, for example. This is not possible because they will not compensate the cost. This is just one example where we see how, but of course doctors are, even Croatian or Slovenian doctors, they are well received in Germany or Austria. So this, because they know German, so this is one, let's say, concrete problem where I think that with the further integration, especially of services, would create more fair conditions where cross-border services could be offered, avoiding or making people not necessarily to move to another country. I think this is very important. And I think also that with the development, with improving linguistic skills, with, you know, EU member states merging in terms of legal orders, this will become possible and reality. So this is one aspect. And the second, I think, is also technology. I think that digital, especially digital technology, is promising. You have all felt that home office became a reality overnight. And I think we have heard of digital nomads. And I think this is an opportunity. Of course, this will develop further. And especially the countries like Croatia or Slovenia or some other countries with high quality, they have something to offer. So I think we have both opportunities at the EU level to create conditions that are fairer than they are today, and of course at home to create attractive conditions for people to come and live also in places where they, you know, at the moment there seems to be brain drain. And I think much can be done with tax policy, with some other measures, but also with, let's say, some naturally given facts that may attract people to come and to live here. But I think on both levels we can shape the policies so that we may have in future more, let's say, balanced and symmetric development.
Thank you. It seems that we tackled very important questions. So here also State Secretary Metelko-Zgombić would like to have her additional comment.
Well, thank you really for this question, and please rest assured that the topic of demography and brain drain and how to enable our people continue living in their homes, in their region, is possible. And I would just like to say that this is, of course, the main competences to deal with this is on the national level. But being aware of this on the EU level has a great potential. And it is not only Croatia, Slovenia to the lesser extent, but some other countries, but also the countries like Germany also feel the lack and decrease of population, and in one way or another face similar challenges. And talking about resilience and demography, I think those two topics go hand by hand. It is just a couple of weeks ago that European Commission has proposed the CHIP Act, for example, which The idea is to tackle shortages of semiconductors and to enhance innovation and production on the European continent. This is a great potential also to enable jobs of our citizens wherever they live. Croatia has also been very active in the recent discussions about foresight report. You're aware that the European Commission is preparing this a report in which it actually outlined 10 very important areas where we as Europeans need to do more in order to be more competitive, in order to ensure high standards of our lives and to ensure our values. So one of them is also innovation and healthcare and pharmacology. Let me just say that Croatia is also trying to give back life to the Immunološki Zavod. So it is our institute which has a long-standing tradition and has had a lot to offer when it comes to health challenges. These production can and should be disseminated all around the EU member states, enabling people access to jobs in their neighborhood. One of the good examples is also Novska. It is a town in Croatia which also managed to attract high-profile IT jobs, and I really believe this is the way how we should proceed. Also having these incentives and having cohesion and equal development in our mind.
Thank you. My cell phone says that now we have a question from the audience, from the student of the Diplomatic Academy. Please present yourself before asking a question. You have the floor.
Thank you. I have a question for State Secretary Mr. Dovžan. Slovenia supported the non-paper on Bosnia and Herzegovina a year ago. Does this mean that Slovenia and Croatia are aligning their policies towards the Western Balkans and plan to act as strategic partners in this context? Thank you.
Mr. Dovžan.
It's a very interesting question, but I think I already indicated the answer, because we both have strategic interest for the region, I think, to become a member of the European Union. And I've spoken about outstanding political issues and of the fact that the integration process is really the only process that offers lasting solutions for those questions. And when it comes to particular questions, of course, member states have sometimes different opinions, but I think the key question at the moment is to push for enlargement, because the credibility is at stake. The willingness for enlargement may not be in all the member states as high as in Slovenia or Croatia. So I think when we are speaking about this enthusiasm, we are definitely on the same page. We are also on the same page, I would say, when it comes to questions of security, when it comes to economic development, and all those questions are best resolved in the context of enlargement. And here, I think that of course, Croatia was the last member states that, the last member that joined the European Union, that has really the fresh experience and also willingness to help the others to go through this process. And I think this is what we are also trying to do with our expertise. But of course, on this path, many reforms are necessary, because, and Andrea also spoke of transformative power of the enlargement policy, and here is the key. So we are all, I think, adamant also to explain in all those countries of the region that reforms are really necessary, not only with the view of the future EU memberships, but especially with the view of improving conditions for people and for their businesses, and all those, I would say, conditions, when they are fulfilled for the EU membership, they instantly benefit people. So in any case, it is worth taking the effort of reform. So this is what is continuous message, but of course the path that the countries of the region have is different, because all countries have different challenges. And here we have to be, here we have a, let's say, multilateral process, and all individual members, countries of the region are in this, in different stage of this process. And member states, of course, all have their ideas and their suggestions as to how to enhance their path towards the EU. Of course, the negotiation process as such is also in the hands of the European Commission that acts on behalf of the member states. So there's, I would say, quite multilateral process that is there, open for the countries of the region on their path to the EU.
Thank you. Now I received a question through social network, and the question is for State Secretary Metelko-Zgombić. How could Europe reduce its dependence on energy, raw materials, and other strategic products which now import from the countries outside from the European Union? I think this is the question which could also be addressed by other panelists as well. But first, Ms. Metelko-Zgombić.
Thank you really for this question. This is really the question for all of us. This is the question for the whole foresight report and for all EU member states and European Commission who jointly work in order to provide us with the answers. We need to find a way how to raise the innovation level. We have so many smart people all around the EU, but what we need is to give them chance to develop their talents and to give them services in place which would enable them to make this long path from innovation to production shorter. We need to return a number of strategic productions which throughout the past we have somehow dislocated outside of the EU. Some of them we really need to return back. The COVID-19 pandemic has underlined the importance of health, not only health service, but also production of the pharmacological products, and this is where EU and its member states need to make more firm steps forward. This is all about strategic autonomy. We need to enter into close partnership with others to enable also to participate in the global chain. But vast majority of important strategic products we need to return back home. And Croatia has been among a number of member states who had been advocating the need to enable production, research all over the EU. This would enable what we have already spoken about, brain circulation. This would enable EU and its member states to make best of the extremely huge human potential we do have. So this is the way forward. We have been discussing also in the area of a strategic compass how to raise our autonomy also in the area of security and defense, how to cooperate jointly within the PESCO to enable close cooperation of companies within the EU to contribute to the production of the technologies and products necessary also for our defense. So there are a number of areas where we need to cooperate closely and be aware that we should be responsible for our autonomy and for our safety. Energy sources are of extreme importance, and Croatia with the LNG has contributed to the diversification of the energy sources. We all need to work and to achieve this transformation to carbon neutral in 2050. We need to have various sources of energy. At the time being, not all of them are totally clean, but we should fight decarbonization and find reliable, sustainable sources of our energy. So all those elements together provide us with our resilience and how to go forward.
Thank you. Madam Vice President would also like something to add.
Said a lot, but when we talk about strategic autonomy, we usually think that it's about foreign policy and our position in the world, but when we talk about strategic autonomy, that is what Andrea said. It's, this commission is, as you know, a geopolitical commission, and we started with pharmaceutical strategy, if you remember, before COVID started. Because if you know the fact, which I still can't believe, that if you think about paracetamol, for example, the only production of paracetamol is at the moment in India. So how come this happened? Because of labor cost and all this. So whole panel could be dedicated to this topic. So pharmaceutical interest is very important. European Chips Act, which we adopted 2 weeks ago, is very important because at the moment we are dependent on South Korea, on Taiwan. If you take lipids, for example, they are produced in Chile, and they are badly needed for example, RNA vaccines. So this COVID learned us a lesson. It opens our eyes, and we have to be really more autonomous, less dependent, and this is what Europe is trying to do, but it's not easy in all fields. Andrea mentioned energy. Of course, we are heading towards carbon neutral continent in 2050, but it's not easy to reach, and this is where cohesion policy is very important, and where recovery and resilience facility is very important. This money, which is allocated to member states for next 4-5 years for Next Generation EU, it is to prepare Europe for next generation. This is what we are doing. This is very strategically, but it's hard, of course, to achieve because you always need 27 member states, and we want all of them to be evenly developed. When we talk about space, on Wednesday during college meeting, we adopted new policy for space. We adopted new defense policy. So when we talk about defense, when we talk about NATO, about PESCO, which Andrea mentioned, all of these European Defence Fund, all of these are compatible. It's not, one does not exclude another. And we have to be really, less dependent, and this is what we are trying to do. Also, this partnership with Africa, today this summit will be over. We are also looking towards our partners, not only to monitor at Africa and to mentor them, but we also want to have them as our partners, because not to let all other players, China, Russia, Turkey, to be there. So we are there with big, huge development assistance. At the same time, we are not promoting ourselves, and this is we badly need better communication, and this is what Europe is trying to do. Also, with this conference on the future of Europe, to make all of you aware of what is going on. Of course, we were blocked because of confinement and lockdown, and we couldn't start 2 years ago. We started with this conference a year ago. We will finish at 9th of May. I'm trying to anticipate the question because I have to leave. So why are we finishing this exercise now? Because we need another part of our mandate, 2.5 years, in order to deliver. Otherwise, it will be end of a mandate and nothing will happen. It will be again deliberation for deliberation's sake. So we want to show that we can deliver, that European Commission, European Parliament and Council, of course, 3 of institutions can deliver in the second half of mandate. And this is what we are trying to achieve. But we won't stop all these deliberations, because we saw that citizens want to have contact with us. And we will try to keep, as I said in my introductory speech, either citizens' assembly, which will meet annually or biannually, or to keep this multilingual digital platform as a permanent mechanism in order to let citizens be able to speak in the period between elections, not only every 4 or every 5 years and then it's over. So we want them to be active in order to empower representative democracy, because we think that deliberative democracy should be also nurtured, because everything, as we all of us were saying, the world has been changing and technology has been developing, and we have to change, us, policymakers. We have to adapt us to this reality. And this is when we say to make democracy fit for the future, this is what we mean, to adapt ourselves and prepare yourself for the future. And this is what we are trying to do. It's very it is very ambitious and very courageous, because there is no democracy in the world which ever introduced citizens to sit at the same plenary session with their elected representatives, with commissioners, with members of European Parliament. This is very courageous, very brave, but we think that citizens have to have their say, and this is what we are trying to achieve with this conference. And of course, I'm now a little bit, it's not only about strategic autonomy, but of course, strategic autonomy is one of our main goals in each and every field which we cover in European Commission. I want to thank you, Andrea, for this invitation, for the possibility to address you, but I have another meeting at 2 o'clock, so I'm really sorry. We are open and use this possibility of multilingual digital platform till Saturday, I think. No, till Sunday 20th. So you can still upload there your idea, your comment, and this could be seen. You can then follow what happened with your idea in our final conclusions, and this is very important. So many citizens were not aware of this possibility. So this possibility is, so it's very open, because they always think that everything is happening in Brussels bubble. But this time it's happening bottom up. So this is the difference from previous dialogues. So thank you once again for all of you, and for all of you who had interest in this topic. All the best.
Thank you, Mrs. Šuice, for your contribution, and hope seeing you at some venue of the same kind, some event of the same kind here in Zagreb or somewhere else in Croatia. State Secretary Dovžan would also like to add some comment on this topic.
Thank you. Just let me just add one sentence. Goodbye to Dubravka. I really appreciate her energy and all her efforts in order to promote the inclusion also of your views in the Future of Europe debate. But one thing I wanted to add on this topic, I think I spoke previously about enlargement, and whenever we speak about resilience and this strategic autonomy, there's great potential also for the countries of the region. So if we are speaking about bringing back to the continent some facilities in order to be more resilient, I think this is great opportunity for the countries of the region. And they should really see this as an opportunity for gaining investment. And the European Commission also supported this by a substantial amount of funds allocated in the multi-annual financial framework for the recovery after the pandemics. And we are speaking about 9 billion euros that could be, that could generate up to 33 billion huge financial leverage in order to support such projects that could, of course, at the end of the day, not only contribute to the region, but also to the resilience and to the strategic autonomy of the EU. Thank you.
Thank you. I have another question received from social network, but I would like to encourage you also to ask whatever you want to ask. It's an ideal opportunity for you. And of course, the whole endeavor actually means that the comments of young people are most than welcome, because you present the future of Europe, and we are speaking about Europe and its future. But you have time to think about. Now I have a very interesting question about unanimity. How can you, there are a lot of comments that EU countries often cannot agree upon common views in respect of the foreign policy issues. Do you think that required unanimity, which is now on place, would be abandoned as a benefit for Europe to become a more stronger global player? It's very small, there are small letters, so I needed to give some additional effort to read. But this is very, let's say, controversial also question about unanimity of Europe, and I think it's a very interesting question for both of you. So who would start first?
Well, this is a really very interesting question. Common foreign and security policy is based on unanimity, and there has always been, from time to time, the ideas and considerations whether this should be changed. And it goes without saying that EU needs to speak with one voice, and in order to be a strong global player, in order to protect and promote the interests of EU member states and promote the values and multilateralism, whatever, it needs to have a clear and strong voice. How can this clear and strong voice be agreed? Until now, we have this concept of unanimity, taking into account that all EU member states have different geographical position, have different historical experience, have different views on their strategic interests, and have little bit different strategic interests. And throughout the discussion within the Foreign Affairs Council, where primarily this common foreign security policy has been discussed. So throughout the discussion, the joint culture of coming together has been exercised. And we really believe that this is the value which needs to be preserved, because each and every EU member state needs to feel that it can be heard, that its interests can be protected, and sometimes lengthy discussions with the Council. And Gašper and I, both of us who had the pleasure of presiding some of the Council formations, we can witness how sometimes very difficult it is to reach the compromise and to find the wording which would be acceptable for all of us. But once it is agreed and once it is found, then it can be regarded as the ownership of each and every EU member state. And this is where its strength lies. So I would vote for continuing unanimity in those foreign affairs topics, which also are the priority within the competence of each of the EU member states, and working on mutual trust, working on solidarity will enable us reaching consensus sooner rather than later. And then once that kind of consensus is reached, then it has really the strength of having a strong voice.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dovžan.
I think, I mean, I have very similar view on this, and Slovenia has traditionally been stressing the need in the Council to have extensive dialogue on outstanding foreign political issues. And here I think in the debate on the qualified majority voting, we sometimes have quite a big misunderstanding, because there's some suppose that QMV would certainly make the EU more efficient. I think that's, generally speaking, questionable, because QMV can also lead towards less dialogue, towards outvoting of some member states, and this could create misunderstanding or could enhance mistrust, and this would not serve its purpose. So this is, I think, what we have to bear in mind when we are speaking about QMV. This was generally speaking, but having said that, I don't think that in some cases this would not be possible. Of course, sometimes we already saw the cases when we are deciding about, I don't know, grave human rights abuses in some member states, and some, I mean, member states are discussing human rights abuses in the third countries and are discussing their policy towards those countries, or when we are speaking about some other grave misconduct of some third countries, and the question of sanctions is at stake, that in some cases may be worthwhile to explore the potential, but not of qualified majority. There are some other models that are discussed. I think if there's only one country, I mean, using this only, you know, sometimes it happens, only to achieve something somewhere else, but only blocking this because, you know, it's convenient because there's unanimity. Or that even if there is QMV, that at least, even if there is, that member states, if there are some issues of national concern, can, despite QMV, require consensus. So there are a number of, I would say, models, and all this will be debated in the Conference on the Future of Europe. But at the end of the day, it's the European Council that needs to agree by unanimity how and where unanimity could be, let's say, abandoned. And here, in practical terms, I think that we are quite far, and we will see how this conference, how far the debate will go. But at the moment, I don't see that there's unanimity so that we could, let's say, have another system of voting in this whole area. So what I wanted to say is highly complex area with a number of, I would say, multifaceted issues that cannot be, simply resolved with abandoning unanimity, but thoroughly debated, and then after the debate decided how we should proceed in the future.
Thank you. It seems that social networks are very active today. I will just have the last question. That is something which Madame Šuica has already spoken about, that is a need to strengthen the system of communication in the European Union. And the question is how Europe could improve system of communication and information towards its citizens on the EU processes and politics in order to enable them to better understand what happens. So, please, State Secretary Metelko-Zgombić.
Well, really, I would like to thank for this question whoever posed it, because it has become clear that EU has not been communicating that well to its citizens, and that there is a huge area for improving the knowledge about the EU and improving knowledge about what's already going on and or what's already been agreed and what we already do have as a policies in place within the EU. And while I was participating in various panels and events, and even in this plenary, which was organized in Strasbourg, one could hear a number of citizens, even some parliamentarians, raising topics which are already being addressed within the EU policies, or are in one way or another in the pipeline. So this gives us all a clear signal that we should communicate more. Although we should also be very aware that a number of topics are quite complex, and it is not that easy to inform citizens in full on all the developments. But one of the, I would count that one of the results of this conference on the future of Europe definitely will be our joint task and responsibility to communicate better and to communicate more about the EU and about the policies and about the ideas which are behind it. And it just struck me what Madam Šuica said, that there was the idea that the platform which was established by the Commission for the purpose of the conference may continue its life even when the formal part of conference is over. That would be also a great tool in which citizens may continue posing questions, proposing various ideas, and then getting the answers about their proposals. Now, when the conference is slowly coming to an end, there are three institutions, or better to say 4 components within the conference, talking about the European Parliament, talking about the member states gathered in the Council, talking about the European Commission, and talking about the European Parliament, talking about the national parliaments, who also do participate in the overall debate. So all those institutions need to come up with a decision how to move forward, and sharing knowledge about the EU and the policies definitely will be one of our tasks also for the future.
Thank you. The same question for Mr. Dovžan. Perhaps you can also address this importance of communication from, let's say, recently finished Slovenian presidency, because I know how it was very important during our presidency to have good communication with citizens in the country. But the floor is yours.
Thank you. It's indeed a highly complex question. I fully agree to what has already been said. We have a challenge. But the fact is that even in general public, when it comes to domestic policies, sometimes is not very interested or is more interested in some other topics, and it's usually it gets motivated when something goes wrong, when there is a problem. There is immediate public attention, and so that, and I think in those situations we are not doing quite well. We are doing, at least what we are doing it in a fair and truthful manner. But we have to be aware that some competitors may not communicate only what is truth, but communicate also to divert attention or to create some misperceptions, to disseminate fake news. So this is not what the EU does. The EU is based on international legal order. Our values are clear: democracy, transparency. So this is major difference. And sometimes, of course, our competitors use this, I would say, also this, let's say, this very simple communication strategy of the European Union against us. And I think this is something what we have to be aware of. We have seen particularly as a problem during the pandemic. But the EU reacted quite good, I would say, at the end of the day. But still, there's a perception in some of the countries of the region in the Western Balkans that some other countries somehow helped more and that the EU was not there. Of course, the EU is not responsible for everything. But can you imagine a crisis like this without the EU? I mean, that's the key question. So we should, it's more complex, it's not simple, but definitely, of course, we were faced at the beginning of the pandemic with a huge challenge. We were not able to deliver equipment, and we were not able to restore all the 4 freedoms overnight. But we did all this. We were able to align ourselves and secure enough vaccines through public procurement at the level of the EU to the benefit not only of the EU citizens, but also of the neighboring regions, but also to Africa and all others. So we have to see things sometimes how would they evolve without the EU. And the result would be terrible, I think. We also, I think for Croatia, for Slovenia, this was very important that during the Portuguese presidency in the first half of 2021, we got a digital certificate that enabled us more safe and easy travel. This is very vital, especially for tourists, for coming to Croatia, for example. This was also let's say, an achievement at the EU level that enabled a lot of people to move freely. So yes, I think we have challenge when it comes to communication. We can do a lot that we somehow don't take things as they are for granted, because they are not. There's a great deal of work behind those achievements. And of course, the EU has still potential when it comes to especially educate people how the EU works, also in schools, and I think this is, I would say, key. But the fact is that the EU is, like Andrea said, highly complex. The legislative process is complex, and here many are also asked to play their part. Also, national parliaments, for example, they scrutinize the governments before they present their positions in the Council. So basically, all European questions should be debated in the Parliament, and the media is always asked to hear, to be there, to ask questions, and sometimes. And I also here I come to your specific question. Also during the presidency, since the questions are sometimes very highly complex, and the issues on the table are sometimes also technical, and the people or the media sometimes assesses that this is not something that people would be interested in, and this sometimes, of course, create, let's say, these shortages when it comes to communication. But as I said, we have to be aware of the fact that what we see, our reality, this is not what we can take for granted, that there's a great deal of the EU in all aspects of our lives, and that it's not only the EU level, but also domestically, national, let's say, media, and also parliaments to debate European questions. And I hope that also debates like this, but the conference on the future of Europe as such, which is going on at the moment, will make another contribution to an improved communication and to let's say to the better understanding of the EU as it works.
Thank you. Since we are running out of time, I think that we have to conclude, and we will do that by closing remarks from our panelists, but please be as brief as possible. So first is the State Secretary Metelko-Zgombić.
Well, thank you very much. I will really be brief, but I cannot not to refer for a second for the excellent example Gašpara said about the perception of the EU also abroad. The question was about communicating EU within the EU member states, but equally important is to communicate about the EU in our closest neighborhood and beyond. And we should always recall that EU is the first world humanitarian aid donor as well as a development provider. And this is seldomly heard and definitely has not been given appropriate credit for. I would just like to thank you all for participating and for being with us today, and just to note that the filling of the European Commission platform will be possible in a longer period of time, but until 20th of February, so in a day or two, in 2 days, it will be the deadline date for gathering the contributions of the citizens and from the events to feed the result of the conference. So I would wholeheartedly invite us all to be active in those last two days and to transmit some of your ideas, some of your proposals, we will make sure that the ideas from today's event are also filled in the platform, because this is the only and the right way to influence the Conference of Future of Europe and to see our views also within the outcome of the conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Dovžan, you are closing remarks.
Thank you very much. I was hoping that some also from the audience here would ask me a question or two, so maybe I would skip because I talked a lot, but if there's a question in this room, I would be more than happy to respond, since I think only people that post digitally, but if there's any question, of course, please.
Do we have a question from the audience instead of closing remarks? Yes, we have. Please.
One quick question regarding the external challenges. Do you think that the European Union should have a more independent and active role in creating its responses to the geopolitical crisis, as opposed to just being perceived as a part of the so-called Western world with the United States and North Atlantic Treaty Organization?
Okay, thank you.
I think that's a brilliant question. Andrea already mentioned the strategic compass, and we are also in the process of defining the relationship between EU and NATO. Of course, not all EU member states are part of NATO, but this is definitely at the moment the strategic umbrella that we have in Europe. But I would agree that European Union definitely needs more strategic approach. We are lagging behind because we understood the globalization is somehow our future and that there are no real geopolitical threats. So we were quite naive for quite some time. But the experience we got in the last decades, I think, taught us that we have to think strategically. And there are activities in this respect going on. So also when it comes to defense, we have PESCO cooperation. But this is moving, let's say, not as fast as some would like, but it is moving. So the EU is slowly becoming more, let's say, strategically thinking entity. And I think this is, of course, important, but not, I'm not saying that this should develop in some kind of antagonism with NATO, because I think it should be complementary. When we are speaking about geopolitics, we know that there are competitive models of society at the moment. And I think that here, at the end of the day, if you want to preserve the values that we all have and cherish, democracy, human rights, rule of law, rules-based world order, then we have to, of course, I would say, think strategically, do as much as we can, but also in complementarity with other partners that share the same values. I think that is very important, and I think on the long run, those, I would say, strategically thinking entities and alliances that really base on freedom of thought and human rights really have strategically speaking also are in a better position to succeed on the long run. So I think this is key, but the more work is of course necessary in order to build up the capacities, but also to agree on key concepts, how to develop further policies. And here a lot of work still needs to be done, but the processes are at place. Andrea already mentioned strategic foresight. All these I would say processes go to that same direction. So thank you very much. It was really a pleasure to be here. All the best from my side.
Thank you. Now it's time really to conclude. I would like to really express our gratitude to our panelists today, Ms. Dubravke Šuice, Vice President of the European Commission, Ms. Andreje Metelko-Zgombić, State Secretary in the Ministry of Foreign and European Affairs of Croatia, and Mr. Gašpera Dovžana, State Secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Slovenia. I would also like to thank all of you for coming here, and especially those who were actively participated at the today panel. You still have a chance to ask, to comment whatever you want through via internet. I would also like to thank those who were following our panel through platforms, YouTube and Zoom, and also those who were actively participating on the social networks. Before we conclude, I'm sure that you share my view that our excellent panelists today deserves a big applause. Thank you.